Welcome to the Psanctuary Podcast, where ancient wisdom has a modern awakening. For thousands of years, psilocybin has been used as a sacrament. At Psanctuary, we're reclaiming that right, honoring the roots while rethinking religion for a modern world. If you've been looking for something real and something psychedelic, well, you've just found your people. Come on in. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Psanctuary Podcast. My go at the Psanctuary Podcast, here with my wonderful wife, Courtney, who many of you know, I'm sure. Before we get into kind of the meat of this episode, Courtney, it probably would be helpful to provide a little bit of context to the audience as to why we're shifting gears here. You had originally been taking on the podcast for Psanctuary, and that's evolved. And so I'd love for you to share kind of your reasoning behind that.
Yeah. So, welcome to 2.0 Psanctuary Podcast. Initially, we as a Psanctuary leadership team decided that it would be great to have my voice and face more involved with media and interviewing members and ministers, and that through the Psanctuary Podcast could be a great way. And while I think it is a great way, it was a great way for me to be more front facing with Psanctuary and stepping out from behind the scenes. We realized that there are other ways in which I can be front facing that you will see very soon, and that really, I think it was my idea to shift to you being the host of the Psanctuary Podcast for several reasons. I really feel like Psanctuary has been a vision of yours for so many years, maybe not in its exact form, like it hasn't been as exactly your vision for all these years. I mean, like 20 plus years. But it just feels like, you holding the space feels really right, to me. Based on all of your involvement talking with ministers. If y'all don't know, Eric is our lead educator for Psanctuary Seminary. So you are talking with ministers and training like every day and really have the deepest relationships with our ministers. So, which those are going to be a lot of the guests that you see on this podcast are the ministers that have been through Psanctuary Seminary and training programs. So it just felt really right for you to be hosting this podcast. So I'm really grateful to be a guest on the 2.0 version.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very much looking forward to what you're going to bring out that's more in alignment with the way that you engage with our community. There's so much truth to what you said, and maybe the undercurrent of the podcast and really of Psanctuary itself is taking a stand for our constitutional religious freedom to use these mushrooms as a sacrament, as they have been for many, many thousands of years. While this has been my 25-year journey up to this point, Courtney and I have been walking this path together for a little over 12 years now. A big part of the impetus to form Psanctuary was the arrest that she and I experienced for working with psilocybin. So I'm sure we'll talk about that in this conversation. But before we get into that, I'd love it if you could share with the audience just what was your original introduction to psilocybin mushrooms? Like, how did you come to even know that they existed, much less consume them?
Well, I had an idea of psychedelic mushrooms in high school. I knew kids that ate mushrooms every now and again, and in the soup of all the other experimental drugs that they were trying. And at the time I was competitive ice skating, and I wasn't messing with nothing that was gonna impact my ability to be the best competitive ice skater I could be. So the kids that I saw experimenting with psychedelics were not a shining image of success and personal development. So that was my first exposure, just seeing kids experimenting in high school, like on the outskirts. I wasn't ever there when they were experimenting because I wasn't in those crowds, but I would just hear like rumors. Oh yeah, they ate mushrooms last week or whatever. I don't know, things like that. And so I wrote off psilocybin from high school up until probably when I was a sophomore in college is when I rediscovered mushrooms through. I'm like really distracted by this bird.
Is that her singing? Yeah.
If
you would, just do me a favor and put your hair off the mic there. I don't know if it's rubbing.
Yeah, I like got this like, yeah, obviously this is gonna be cut out. I just like got this, or maybe not, image of this bird being the bird where the egg came from that we found in the yard.
Yeah, you can cut that out, Scott.
Yeah, cut that out. Just like part of my brain is thinking, oh no.
Okay, it's not. Just let's keep going.
Okay. All right. So I rediscovered the mushroom when I was working at a local health food store, Rainbow Blossom. And
Plug Rainbow.
Yeah, shout out Rainbow Blossom. If you live in the Kentuckiana area, you know what I'm talking about. That's really when I began this whole self-discovery journey. I had stopped ice skating a couple years before that and went through this huge identity crisis. Who am I without this day-to-day?
How many years had you been ice skating?
Since I was 6 years old.
6 to 19?
6 to about 19.
So 13 years. It's, yeah.
Yeah. At like most days I was consumed just with that, like thinking about the routine that I was practicing, thinking about the competition I was about to go to, thinking about my social life there, thinking about treating an injury, like for all those years. So I stopped skating and I went through this huge crisis, and I'm sure anyone listening can relate in some way, whether it's you've lost a job, changed jobs, gotten out of a relationship, moved home. Like there's all kinds of big major life things that can happen in someone's life, and that was mine at the time. So I was in the middle of, who am I now? If I'm not an ice skater, if I'm not an athlete, if this isn't my social life, what makes me? So Rainbow Blossom was an amazing place to rediscover who am I, because here are all different perspectives that you don't hear every day on living. There's a library in each store, like a little bookstore in each Rainbow Blossom on alternative or original methods of healing and wellness. And so I worked at a pretty slow store. It was in a smaller part of town, so we didn't have this ongoing feed of customers. So there was downtime, like quite a bit of downtime. So I spent a lot of time reading and educating myself on different healing modalities and preventative ways of thinking about health and living and spirituality. Like a lot of that holistic approach to life and wellness is spirituality, rooted in spirituality. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of different books on getting in touch with one's spirituality to heal physical disease. And I had never thought of that approach before being exposed to that, working at that store. So that was happening. And at the same time, at that store, we'd get trainings on supplements. So supplement companies would take us out to dinner at local restaurants and give big PowerPoint presentations and feed us, which was a big incentive to go. As a broke health food store employee, I'm going to get fed and I'm going to learn. So I would go to every single opportunity there was. And there was one like every month. And I started noticing, this was about like year 2, or well, yeah, about year 2 working there, that suddenly every single training, the trainer was incorporating medicinal mushrooms into the presentation, like showing that, oh, they're adding medicinal mushrooms to this supplement line on cardiovascular health. They're adding medicinal mushrooms to this line on immune system health. And it just kept coming up in all these trainings like a boom. They weren't there at all. The mushrooms weren't there. And all of a sudden they were everywhere. And so this was like 2012, I guess. And so I started to get really interested in mushrooms in general and asking a lot of questions about mushrooms. Simultaneously, I was dating a vegan chef who was cooking with mushrooms. And simultaneously, I was exploring my spiritual life for the first time, really, myself. So not my mom taking me to church as a kid and me just going to please her, but like this was the first time I was actually like listening to Alan Watts and listening to thinkers talk about spirituality in life and intentionality, and not in a dogmatic way. So it was all coming together. And then I found out about your mushroom farm that you had through the root seller in Louisville, this little grocery store that was selling your gourmet mushrooms, shiitake and lion's mane and everything. And so that kind of leads to how we met. But like at the same time, I was smoking a lot of weed at the time. And for the first time was I ever smoking weed. And I went from just smoking weed to smoking weed all the time. Because I was in this expansive place of, I just want to expand. Like my consciousness feels so big for the first time ever. And the guy that I bought cannabis from sometimes called me and said, hey, I've got this really good deal and some really good funky stuff. And he told me the price, and I thought that sounded unreal. Like, how can weed ever be so cheap for this much? And like, I'll take it. He shows up and it's a giant bag of cubensis, dried mushrooms. And I said, I will not buy that. That is not what I wanted, actually. And he said, I told you I had a big I had a bunch of fungi. And I thought he said funky stuff and whatever. Big miscommunication. He drove a long way. I bought the mushrooms because I felt bad. And so here I am with all these mushrooms in my freezer for like months. I'm talking about it to people, like trying to like resell the mushrooms because I'm thinking I'm terrified to do this. I discovered Terrence McKenna at that time as well. So I really wanted to try intentionally eating mushrooms, but I just felt so scared and unsure. And I was slowly piecing out the mushrooms to different friends that I had, but I had enough for like a handful of doses after piecing all these mushrooms out to friends. And my roommate, who's one of those people at the time, my roommate, she was a life insurance agent and like just a personality that could sell anyone anything and get you to do whatever she wanted you to do. And one night she came home from being from work or something with her coworker, and she was like, Courtney, I'm tired of looking at these mushrooms in the freezer. We're eating them tonight. And I was like, no, are you crazy? I'm not ready. And she's like, oh, she's like, would not take that for an answer. And she was like, well, you're just going to keep saying tomorrow, basically just never going to do it. And I was like, oh, you're so right. Gosh, I hated it when she was right about that kind of thing. And we ended up eating the mushrooms. So, in a nutshell, that's my little cycle to getting to my first.
Well, I think it's important that we point out that first mushroom experience wasn't everything you imagined it would be. You don't have to go into the detail here, but it's worth pointing out that the unstructured environment, the lack of experience or skill with mushrooms led to some pretty challenging hours there.
Yes.
Is it fair to say?
Oh, yeah. After that experience, I walked away. I actually called the guy, my got some good funky stuff guy. And I was like, what the hell was that? Like that, what you told, because of course he's sitting there with a bag of mushrooms. Like, just eat some ginger. Like, it'll be great. You're going to have the best experience of your life. It's going to be so wonderful and full of love. And I was like, well, that does sound, pretty great. Okay, yeah. So it was nothing like that for me. And so I called him and he was just like, well, there's no such thing as a bad trip. He did tell me that. He said, there's no such thing as a bad trip. So you must have something to learn from it. And I'm like, whatever. Like, that was just horrible. And for anyone listening which is probably many of you, who have any mushroom experience, you can just deduce why I may have had a very challenging experience. So my roommate getting home with her coworker, who I did not know at all, and rushing me, pressuring me to eat mushrooms. The coworker, having never eaten mushrooms before, she was just kind of like sure, like, I'll do whatever kind of person. Had no context for what the experience would be like. And so you can just kind of deduce what happened there.
Cramped apartment,
inexperienced people. Winter time. Yeah. They had just had a big Mexican food dinner. And like, initially, I will say the experience, I felt like that expansion that I had been feeling with my beingness at that time. At the beginning of the experience, when the mushrooms started to welcome me in, I felt that times 10. I felt like, wow, I am this whole space. I'm this whole room. I am beyond what I have realized I am. And then what happened was my roommate's coworker started having a quote unquote bad trip where she was looping, really struggling. My roommate couldn't handle it. She was like, I'm out of here. She went to her bedroom and locked the door. And here I am with this person I don't know at all, and trying to like figure out, how do I help this person in the midst of my own
very first mushroom,
what is going on experience. And it's like so many moments. I had one of my good friends call me from jail in the middle of that experience.
So we're learning so much here.
Like,
not in an apartment in the wintertime, not with newbies. No, do you even know what your dose was? You just eat some mushrooms.
yeah.
Don't answer the phone. Put your phone on airplane mode. There's just so many things that we can take away from this experience.
So many things. And I learned a lot. I do remember I had to work the next morning at Rainbow Blossom. And when I was driving into work, I mean, I had that whole afterglow feeling. Things still felt a little like the walls were still talking to me a little bit when I got to work. I remember driving to work, just saging the car, just like, oh, I hope I can make it to work. Because by the time we ate the mushrooms, it was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
yeah.
There's another.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah.
Don't do.
So many things. But I remember this little voice like, but there's something there. Mm-hmm. Like that may have been incredibly challenging and kind of horrible, but there's something there. Mm-hmm. I think the beginning of the experience, that expansiveness that I felt and how at peace I felt with my own soul was enough of a glimpse before everything just went awry to keep this lingering question that, well, maybe there's a way, like there's a different way. So the next time that I was willing to have that experience again was after I met you, when I felt like, okay, this is a person that has enough experience that I feel safe with, that can just show me a different way. Because that's not the way that
It's a way.
It's a way. It is not the way
not
for me
way.
anymore. And like we the way that you described your way at the time, and the way of other cultures that had been practicing with the mushroom, and like I'd been listening to Terrence McKenna a lot, so I knew like that wasn't the way. I knew that the way that happened was chaotic, and I knew of other ways, intentional ways. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know anybody that actually practiced the intentional ways. I still knew people that ate mushrooms at parties and shows, concerts and stuff, but that never appealed to me. That's never what I wanted to do. So when I met you, it just felt like this full body, yes, like this is a person that I can have this experience with and feel into a way for me that feels right.
And then I got you arrested.
Well, there was,
we got ourselves
a few years of other things that happened before that.
Pause. I want to just check the camera.
Okay,
we're good. Yeah. Before we get into the arrest conversation, though, can we talk? First of all, you touched on your upbringing in terms of religion and said that you just went to church to make your mom happy. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what your understanding or relationship with God or the idea of God or religion, spirituality, like what was there for you prior to your mushroom experiences?
So the most impactful memory I have from my time going to church with my mom, my dad has always identified as agnostic, basically. Like he believes there's something bigger, but just there's not like a definition of it that feels right for him. And he didn't want to go to church. My mom took me to Baptist church. She grew up Baptist. And there was a part of me that I really appreciated exploring something mysterious and so big we can't comprehend it, and something to lean into, like that faith aspect. Like there is a part of life that we can lean into and ask for help from that is unseen. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, I always felt that, and I felt spirit, and I felt that something bigger, but I didn't identify with the way that the message was delivered to me about it in Baptist church. Mm-hmm. And I didn't identify with the way that my family, so both sides, my dad's mom and my mom's parents, the way that shame, blame, guilt was weaved into the messaging always felt uncomfortable for me and kind of repelled me from desiring to want to go to church. So I did mainly go like for my mom because I knew it made her happy. But while I was there, I found myself leaning into the like, okay, well, let's be open here, like to exploring, getting the bits and pieces that I appreciate. So there was one service, this is like the most impactful memory I have. There was one church service where the preacher was giving this really powerful sermon, and I honestly don't remember what the topic was, but it was one of those Sundays where he was really calling for people to be baptized, like whoever felt called to really make that commitment to be with God, to come down and like do it now. And something inside of me just like, I just felt this magnetic pull. Like the way that he talked about it that Sunday, it didn't feel isolating. It didn't feel like a should. It felt like a calling from within, that you know it, you know it's happening when it's happening. And if it's happening for you, like this is your bridging moment. And I turned to my mom and I was like, I think I want to go down there. And she was just like, okay. My parents had never pressured me to be baptized. So in the Baptist church, this was a huge church in downtown Louisville, Walnut Street Baptist, for anybody in Louisville who knows it. Like, it's huge and it's beautiful, like, gorgeous stained glass all throughout the church, and yeah, really beautiful place. And behind the pulpit, there's this big bath with like glass, one of those, so you can see the water and you can see people being dunked into the water. And so I remember just like almost like floating down there, like we were seated pretty high up in the audience. It's like a really big church. And so I just remember kind of floating down there and looking, like getting to the pastor and looking him in the eyes. And he was like, are you ready? Like, you ready to really meet God and have this conversation? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I don't know why, but here I am. And so he was like, great, well, we'll have to make an appointment because we don't, it's not going to be today. Like, it's going to be another day. Cause
were you the only person that walked down there?
No, there was a few other people.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, oh, darn, I thought it was going to happen right now.
So this is so interesting. Did the other people get turned away in front of you too? Or how, like, did you
No, nobody got turned away. It was just like a go over here and talk to the my assistant who's going to get you an appointment.
Okay.
So it was like they had a church service. They were basically getting a list of people to line up for a specific church service where they dunked people under the water.
You got dunked?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember that day. I remember going. I'm glad it wasn't like the moment that I went down there, because it gave me some spaciousness to really feel into what was about to happen. As that's an ethical move, I think.
Yeah, from yeah, makes sense.
Give some spaciousness. So it was a couple weeks, I think. And so I went back, and I remember them, handing me, it's like a white cloak or robe or whatever it is, and putting it on behind, there's like a little dressing room behind the dunk station. Like, I don't know what they call it. That's how involved in church I was. Like, I have no idea what the terminology really is.
Probably like a baptismal font or something like that.
Right.
Maybe the dunk station. I don't know.
Lovingly known as
I've often thought that they should do
tank.
baptisms with like the throw the ball at the guy, whoever's the baptismal candidate just sits there until they get.
Yeah.
Maybe a sanctuary. If we ever do baptism, we can do that.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
But so I remember being in the stall, like the dressing room stall, and feeling this, like feeling washed over with, like my whole body feeling like this energy pulsing through my body. Like, really felt like an awakening type of moment where I was acknowledging I'm a spiritual being and I'm communing with God, whatever that is, like this feeling of this everything that's making a connection with me, and I'm making a connection with it, and being taken to this water and like submerged under the water and being brought back up and feeling like my life is different now. Like having that feeling and walking away feeling like really a deeper commitment to being alive. And so that is like the most like standout moment I have as far as church going experience.
So it has me really curious, and I don't want to assume, but are there correlatives in your mushroom experience where you've had an experience that felt like a defining moment for your human or for your spirituality? When, so we had that first, we did our first dose together, but I'm curious, is that, or when did you have a mushroom experience that was a spiritual experience? And maybe your first one had elements of it there, but like, was there a point where you started to understand that, oh, this is more than just like a tool to be curious with. This is something that has like, there's intelligence behind it. Maybe that's not what you thought, but
it feels like I'm trying to think of one experience that I haven't felt another layer of a deepening spirituality type of awakening or understanding or connection. Most of them, there's been like an added piece of the puzzle to connecting with something bigger, something that's helping me see things in a more comprehensive way that I haven't seen before.
Can you say that about your first experience?
Well, that, yeah, So there is the beginning part of that, where I felt, for the first time, I felt a connection. I felt myself as being everything, and in a shocking way. And that, so I suggested that during that first experience in that little apartment with my roommate and her coworker, I suggested that we start off doing an oming meditation, because I was meditating a ton at that time, like doing 2 to 3 hours of meditation a day.
Weren't you doing the School of Metaphysics at that time? Or in that window of time?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So I was spending a ton of time in meditation, doing a lot of Tara Brach meditations, which are like long sitting meditations. And I thought, why not Om? Let's get us started with some Oming. And they had never done that before. And I don't think either of them had meditated ever. And so that is doing the Oming. Like, I remember my consciousness traveling to the corners of the room and feeling my body at the same time. I had never felt, meditating every day for hours, had not even come close to experiencing that outer body type of experience. And that experience is, I am pretty confident, what set off the coworker gal.
Too intense.
Yeah. Like, I'm out of my body. What? Don't like that. And so, and it was shocking for me. I remember opening my eyes and feeling like, is this okay? Am I okay? Because it was such a foreign experience. And then this person having a very scary experience for her, then was, for me, it was a mirror for me of doubt and uncertainty and control, like mirroring the challenges that I had had for so many years. And I did not feel able to surrender to that uncertainty, release control, for plenty of great reasons in the moment. But it got scary for me, because I felt like I was dying for sure. I had that experience of, I'm stuck like this forever. I'm in this like eternal, dark, questioning feeling of doubt and uncertainty forever. This is hell. This is hell. And that's a very spiritual experience. Indeed. So when I was out of the mushroom space and at work the next morning, I felt a deep relief that I'd never felt before. A very deep sense of being alive that I had never felt before. So even that woke me up to, one, I am alive in a whole new way that I hadn't realized. Yeah. So very spiritual experience, and I don't know if I would have described it as a spiritual experience like the next day. Maybe, but I have had one mushroom experience where I remember feeling like that was a spiritual experience, but I don't know, like I remember questioning the intention of the mushroom to such a degree where I felt like I can't tell if this is helping me, there's different spiritual paths. Like just because you're on a spiritual path doesn't mean that you're moving towards the light.
Right.
So
Right.
I did have one mushroom experience where question if being in relationship with the mushroom was getting me closer to the light or closer to the darkness. And I questioned the motives of the mushroom for a while after that experience. And that was probably my like fourth or fifth, probably like my fifth deep dive with the mushroom. I really questioned, like, is this hurting me?
Do you want to talk about the specifics that had you asking those questions?
Yeah. I felt within the experience, and I remember voicing this to you because you were there right next to me, feeling very certain that I was poisoned. And we've seen plenty of people go through this experience.
2 grams, by the way. That was 2 grams.
And talk about it. Yeah. I felt that I was poisoned. The mushroom was using me and manipulating me to suck my energy and basically mine my energy was I'm like, yeah, I can remember exactly where I was sitting in front of the fire, the direction I was sitting, and knowing for sure, without a shadow of the doubt, that I was finally awoken to the fact that the mushroom was using me for its own purposes and not so much caring about me. And I remember trying to voice those things to you in some form or fashion. Basically, I remember saying, like, I'm poisoned. It's poisoning me, like, over and over. But when I came out of the experience, it was very hard for me to see the bigger message there, besides the fact that that is the extent of the message. Like, I thought, no, that's it. Like, you just got clarity and you need to stop eating mushrooms. So, yeah.
How did that shift? What you ate mushrooms again.
Yeah.
I mean, you were hanging out with me, so
we talked about it quite a bit. I remember you saying over the course of several months after that, I'm feeling the call to go into the mushroom space again. And me saying, I really don't think I want to. I really am feeling like I'm questioning if this is something that's helpful for me or not. I'm really questioning it. Like, I don't know. And after a lot of conversations, I think I remember starting to question if what the mushroom was telling me was more of a what can be called a hologram moment, where it was showing me a consciousness, a way of that I'd been operating in the world, that people around me are trying to take advantage of me, that like a deeper belief system that I was already having, that I was just projecting out towards the mushroom. And the questions that you were asking me at the time, I remember sitting with some of them, and that was basically, I remember feeling very uncomfortable really considering that maybe that was something that was going on already in me, with people and opportunities and myself, just kind of like a self-defeating type of belief system that I was being shown. And I remember you saying, well, I'm going to eat mushrooms tonight or tomorrow or whatever, and you can join me or not. Whatever is fine. And me feeling like I'm gonna just find out. I'm gonna go into the mushroom space, and I'm going to get more clear on what I'm doing this for, why I'm eating mushrooms. And I believe that next trip was a really powerful one for me, in which you were really inviting me to get clear about what I stood for. And that the unfolding there, from the trip where I got really sure the mushrooms were out to get me, to the next trip, was that I have just been operating without direction, really, for a while. And when we don't know where we're going, or we don't have an orientation, and we're not clear about what is important to us in our lives, what are my values? How do I know if I'm doing something that is good for me or not? We can't answer those questions if we don't know, have an inner knowing of ourselves enough to say, this is important to me, and this is important to me, and this is important to me. And so that next trip, I really realized that I haven't known, like I haven't gotten clear. I've just been kind of doing whatever comes to me. Like, I guess I'll do it, not really being clear on if it's getting me closer to what I want in my life. So yeah, that next trip helped me see that, okay, that's what I'm
Which
being
wasn't
led
a
to figure
super,
out.
like, it wasn't a super enjoyable experience, if I recall that one.
It wasn't.
But profound and transformative. Like that clarity that can come when we, and I love how you're depicting this, the initial exposure to yourself and projecting that self onto the mushroom, or whatever's around you is not uncommon, but that you were courageous enough and intuitive enough to somehow go back there, and then to have yet another challenging experience that kind of in a different way affirmed the previous experience. And I guess it feels like this is one of the most really important things for people to understand, is that in working with psilocybin, often the most difficult experiences are the most transformative experience. There's this kind of tendency to seek the good trip, but in doing that, we're setting ourselves up for failure in the first and foremost, and then we're missing a ton of opportunity if we're not willing to go and do the challenging, difficult work.
Yeah.
Which you've continued to exemplify that over years in various aspects of your life.
Thank you for saying that. It's so true that none of us, the ironic thing is that most of us anyway, probably won't willingly go into an experience of any kind if we know it's gonna suck. Like, it's safe to say the majority of us don't plan a vacation knowing like it's gonna fall apart.
Right. Unless you're a boxer or something. It's like,
unless what?
You're a boxer is the only thing.
Oh.
Like, I know I'm gonna get punched in the face 50 times. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm gonna do it voluntarily.
True. True. Right. But it is those really hard times that if we're willing to learn from them, that end up being some of the greatest enablers for us to have a really wonderful, like, joyous experience.
Well, I think this translates into spiritual work, period, or generally. As you were talking about, there are spiritual paths that lead towards light and leads toward light and lead toward darkness. And the spiritual paths that lead toward darkness are the ones that are lit up all the way, right? Like the love and light spiritual bypassing. That's the actual spiritual path that leads to darkness. Whereas the spiritual path that leads to light is the one that is challenging, a little bit scary, seems dark. It tests your faith, it tests your resolve. It helps you become the being we were all meant to be.
Yes, it's so amazing to me that is how it is, because in both paths there is darkness and there is light. However, in one of them you're avoiding it, and in the other one you are being proactive about it and choosing the way in which you want to experience it. And so that to me is the path to light. And that's ultimately through having you to really talk things out with is what helped me have the courage to go back in to the mushroom space. If I didn't have anybody to really talk things out with who would challenge me a little bit, then I don't know if I would have gone back. When we have community, relationships that love us enough, care about us enough to say like, well, what about this? Like, are you running here? Are you trying to run because this just feels uncomfortable? Or is this really just like not in alignment with who you are? I really appreciate you being that person that's been willing to sit with me in that uncomfort of figuring that out for myself.
And I'm going to encourage any listeners out there who may be hearing themselves in your story. Maybe you have left the path because you had an experience that felt it just wasn't what you had hoped it would be. I've seen so many people over the years who have this idea of what mushroom work is supposed to be. They have a handful of, light, positive experiences, and then they start to get into the more challenging material, and they immediately say, oh, well, I was wrong. Mushrooms aren't for me. I would encourage you to reevaluate that if that's what you have told yourself, because everything Courtney's saying is true. And my hope is that we all just like do the work that needs to be done to grow into our most expanded version of self.
Yeah, it is not ever straightforward. And that's why it's so fun.
Well, let's talk about one of those wines in the path there. So as I mentioned already, and most of you, a lot of you probably already know about the story of Courtney and I being arrested. If you want to get the full Monty, go back and listen to the very first episode of Psilocybin Says, a podcast that Courtney and I did together for several years. We did a 4-hour episode really laying out our adventures in the mushroom world.
It's pretty cool how many people have told me they listened to the entire episode and really appreciated it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. We have an amazing story. We really do. And the fact that we're sitting here right now is, I think, a testimony to the power of the mushroom, the power of commitment. So anyway, without getting on that side note, I want to talk not necessarily about the arrest, but more so about your relationship with the mushroom after the arrest and kind of how that evolved, because it's like a expanded version of what you're already talking about, and I know there is incredible value in your story and the process that you went through in evaluating your relationship with this sacrament, and then to have come to where you are now is, in my mind, one of the most powerful testimonies that I've witnessed of this being truly a sacrament, because you continue to stay with it despite the ups and downs that you've experienced. So could you kind of talk about, how your relationship with the mushroom changed post-arrest?
So it was, well, the first memory that comes to me is actually that night, that ceremony night that led to our arrest, which again, 4-hour episode if you want that story. But being like towards the end of that ceremony and still being in the mushroom space and talking with the mushroom and feeling like, I mean, I remember having some sort of profound clarity. Again, that moment of I'm alive. I'm alive right now in a way that I've forgotten that I am. I've been going through the motions, ignoring a lot of things, ignoring a lot of signs. And right now it's all so clear, painfully clear, and not yet having a thank you mushroom, thank you God moment, but having that clarity and really just seeing my entire life just kind of, it's crazy to have such duality, but like having the clarity and also seeing my life just fall apart before my eyes. And because I thought we're going to prison for a very long time. For sure, I thought that. And so there was that moment, and I felt the mushroom right there with me, like we were going through it together. But then, so fast forward a couple of weeks, and we have ankle bracelets on, and we're separated. It was another mushroom. You have betrayed me. You have used me. You've basically poisoned my life. And I want to have nothing to do with you ever again. That was my communication with the mushroom at that time. So this is like, we're under house arrest in different homes and thinking I'm going to prison.
We weren't able to talk to each other.
We're not able to talk to each other. I'm not going to be able to get a job that I want maybe for the rest of my life. Like if I even can get a job, because we were under house arrest like before our sentencing went through, just not knowing what was going to happen.
Charged with 3B felonies. It was a big deal.
Yeah. So, and then when we finally got the sentencing and we knew we weren't going to go to prison and we were given 2.5 years probation, it felt like God gave me another chance. It felt like now you have an opportunity to get your life together and do things a different way. Whatever you've been doing, this was where I was at. Whatever you've been doing has not been a good idea. Like I was throwing the baby out with the bathwater at that point. I'm like, everything goes how I was doing it before, except for our relationship. I wanted to give us another shot. But like everything else wanted nothing to do with it. So when we got back together and we're figuring things out again, like trying to reconfigure what is our life now, no mushroom farm, moving back to the city, what now? We got felonies because we did get class D felonies.
One class D felony.
One class D felony and then some misdemeanors. Like, what are we going to be able to do from this? I was absolutely beside myself when you wanted to keep doing psychedelic mushroom work. I couldn't fathom why after what had just happened. And I remember feeling very upset with you. Like, this makes no sense to me. Like, you're willing to risk your livelihood, your family, us. Like, why? Why? Look at what the mushroom did to us. That was my mentality. And so we finally got to a point where I was just like, just whatever it is, it needs to be legal. Like, if you're doing mushroom work, it needs to be legal. That's all I care about. So if you can figure that out, go for it, my man. But I'm going to be over here. I'm not having anything to do with it except for just giving you a little thumbs up like this.
A reluctant thumbs up.
Yeah. So, and then you had this crazy idea to tell our probation officer that you wanted to, you had started a nonprofit pledge, psilocybin, liberation, education, discipline, guidance. And you had this idea where you wanted to tell our probation officer that you wanted to do your community service hours through Pledge, the psychedelic nonprofit. And I was like, please don't even suggest that. Like, I don't want him to think that we're doing psychedelics or something, like, and then deal with that, like, have him be questioning us. Because we had gotten to have a pretty good rapport at this point. And you were like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask him. And I was like, oh my God, please don't ask him. And there we were, sitting there with him. And you were like, hey, so I got an idea. And I was like, don't ask him. And you told him, and he was like, that sounds great. Yeah, we can do that. Just, like, no problem. And he was, like, excited. He was like, that sounds really awesome. And I just remember sitting there, like, what is happening? Like, am I, like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to think. I'm so confused. I just got a felony for, like, having mushrooms and cannabis, and now you're cool, and we can get drug tested at any time for psilocybin, cannabis, whatever. And now you're telling me you're super excited for us to do community service hours through a psychedelic nonprofit.
Well, you specialize in addiction recovery, so
right. But I just felt like that's when nothing made sense. I was just like, I don't understand why this is all why did this happen to me and us? Like, are we supposed to be doing this? Are we not supposed to be doing it? Can I get some kind of clear direction here? Somebody help me. And we had I don't know if we had our son yet at that point.
No,
I was pregnant.
2016.
I was, like, super pregnant
yeah.
when you asked him that. Because we had been on probation for a year at that point. Because we had the one officer, and then he switched.
It was July 2nd, 2015 when we were arrested. It's 10-year anniversary this year, July 2nd coming up.
So that happened. And you started really doubling down on your commitment to the vision and the heart, like what you have felt is right for our community and the world and us. And I couldn't deny it. Like, in my heart, I knew. And it scared me so much. Like, yes, I knew that the mushroom has helped me, like, feel myself and love my life. And at the same time, I had this, like, juxtaposition with, and my life seems to be ruined now. So what do I do? And you just kept saying, like, I know that there is a way, there's got to be a way to bring the mushroom to people in a safe and, like, legal, accessible way. Like, I know there's some way. And maybe us getting arrested was really just like a redirection. Like, it was an opportunity for us to do this the right way.
If you recall, I mean, so, the first MICO retreat in Jamaica was November 2013. You and I went together and did that kind of beta test there. And then in 2014, I did one or two, I think, small, like, private groups down there. And then we were arrested in 2015, all that, and it wasn't until after we got the ankle bracelets off, and I had started the nonprofit in 2016, I was still doing the retreats, and you were, I think, definitely opposed. I don't know how I feel like you didn't. Were you opposed to me doing those retreats? Because they were legal, but I feel like you still had reservations about it because of fear of something going wrong there.
Yeah. I mean, I was just overall, I felt very confused as to how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, initially I thought, if you're doing it in Jamaica, and it's legal, then great. I mean, then there's a whole other series of questions, like,
how do you get mushrooms down there?
But we're broke, and there's no
that.
mushrooms down there, so how the mushrooms get in there? And then having to figure that out last minute. So some, like, very uncomfortable parts of navigating all of that. And us just having no money, like, we had no money. And that was I remember feeling like, okay, we both have felonies, and this is our like, the retreats is our best opportunity to have, like, ironically, to have a life that is thriving. Like,
but I think that only came after, if I recall, in 2016, I had two guests that came down there that offered to donate a year's salary to me, like $35,000 in total. They offered to give to me for a salary so I could stop working the restaurants after I had to sell the farm or get rid of the farm and everything after their arrest and whatnot. And I feel like it was you witnessing profound changes in some of the guests that kind of got you back on board with it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Now we're talking about kind of like towards the end of our probation there. Because, I mean, right after we were arrested and right after we were arrested, that was not real. I wasn't seeing a whole lot of people, because the retreats were still small and, like, super small and
sporadic.
Spaced out. But after you got those donations from those guests that came on retreat, and we felt some spaciousness, and you were able to actually, like, put some more energy and time, and, like, you were doing it more people were coming. Yes, I was hearing, and by the time I got to go back with Theo, it was undeniable how much of an impact the work was having on people. Major impact. Like, yeah, I mean, just that one of those guests that donated had stage 4 cancer and was somehow like not dying.
Yeah, she is
still alive,
still thriving. Yeah,
and people with chronic depression for so many years finally just feeling themselves and seeing some light in their lives. And yeah, you were full of those stories. And so I started getting the signs, the clear signs, giving me a little bit more spaciousness to allow myself to commit to continuing.
Which we did, and you were so central to the growth of that enterprise, that project. It just did some amazing work. We served over 1,000 people together, and just saw miracle after miracle. And also we recognized that there was something missing from that model, right? I think at that time we didn't know what it was that was missing, and maybe we didn't know until kind of further down the road, or we didn't start to feel somewhere down the road that there was something missing, which is ultimately that community container for the ongoing exploration and integration of these experiences. The retreat model, as powerful as it is, brings people in from around the world, has powerful experiences, and sends them back home. And then at best you have some like virtual integration community that doesn't generally last very long. Seeing the void that leaves, I think it started to plant the seed for what Psanctuary is. We ultimately and obviously moved back to the States for the most part because that project took on a more I want to say kind of clinical approach. Some of the folks that we worked with there kind of wanted to take it a different direction, and we were ultimately just really ready to get back to our home here in Kentucky and family. But when we came here, you weren't super enthusiastic about starting a church either.
Starting to see a theme. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I've been seeing the theme for a long time. Yes, I am sun sign Taurus. For anybody into astrology, now you know, and it's all clear now.
Keep it comfy. Keep it comfy.
Yeah, I like my roots. I like stability.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's has its own beauty. Yeah, well, community had always been a part of the Jamaica vision. I remember, like, at first meeting you and you holding up the bag of spawn and of cubensis spawn, and being like, with the Ethiopian cross on it, and you were like, there will be a community, a mushroom community in Jamaica. And like, this is my vision, and consistently communicating the vision of community, and also communicating a vision of community on the land that we were on in Indiana. That was regularly like, this is where I envisioned maybe having some cabins over here, and like, this being like a thriving somehow community.
Do you remember that we had the Amish were building our first cabin when we got arrested? We ended up having to sell it because, remember that? I had paid the Amish to build one of their efficiency cabins, and they had gotten about halfway through building it, and then we got arrested and kicked off the property.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Even before psychedelics were a thing.
That was just chaos.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I do feel like we knew pretty consistently that was missing in Jamaica. There was that running question in little like strategy sessions, like, but how do we bring community into this?
Mm-hmm.
And then it quickly dissipating with the logistics of doing that. Like living in Jamaica is so expensive. And even though it's a third world country, I mean, it like, I guess that's just a part of being a third world country. Like, it's just really expensive. Logistically,
That's an island.
Really hard. Yeah, it's an island. So that's really feels like the reason why that wasn't feasible.
And why it was ultimately sucking the life out of us, I think.
What part?
There was no community.
Right. Well, yeah, our community was transient.
Yeah.
Like people that came in and left, like you said. So, yes, that was exhausting. So, coming back here. Yeah, I like leaving Jamaica, like how it all happened very quickly and not the way I envisioned it, so to say the least. So that was really hard. We had a 3-year-old son who had kind of like been growing up there and had his best friends, his little best friends there and his nanny there. And like, you know, a lot of things happened during COVID for everybody, for most people, that were very unsavory and like shifted, like big perspective shifts. So that was one of those times for us. We had to make some uncomfortable decisions in unsatisfactory ways. And so coming back here, it felt like, how do we have a fresh start? Yeah, what does that look like? What's next for us? And I still carrying the energy of being arrested in the US, and I could not see a way to have a mushroom church. That seemed absurd to me. That seemed way beyond my risk tolerance. And we had just had we were about to have a baby. So that's just, where are we at on time?
Sorry. It's 10 minutes till 3. Yeah, we're here.
Is this another 4-hour episode?
No, it's not. Okay, so I want to get to talking about the creation of Psanctuary here. And then kind of visioning how this could impact spiritual culture in America, and then we'll get to our 2 closing questions.
Okay. So yeah, that's felt like a pretty big gamble, as it would for anybody, I think, even those with a high risk tolerance. That's a big one. Like, about to have a baby, starting a community, a spiritual community that practices with a Schedule I substance, claiming our right to work with it as a sacrament, setting the standard for that, because there's really not many mushroom churches really doing it well besides Psanctuary right now. So yeah, that's a tall order. So I just felt like the density of saying yes to that. Like, that's not a light decision. Like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So again, when I sat with it and there was some synchronicities in there. We had a member one of our first members, shout out Honor Boone. She's been on the podcast. She's been on the Psilocybin Says podcast a couple times. Mm-hmm. She was a guest at our retreat center in Jamaica, and she moved from California to Louisville, Kentucky, not even knowing that we lived here. And we just found that out like right after we started Psanctuary. And she was one of our first Psanctuary members, and
she was the first ceremony that we did.
And something clicked with me when she came into the fold. Something really clicked with me, feeling like I have a lot of respect for Honor, and seeing how she took to it. Like, she's a very risk averse person, and I think that's probably why it has something to do with the clicking of it for me, because she
doesn't have easy mushroom trips either. She'll talk about that,
yeah. And so her saying yes to Psanctuary, asking all the questions she asked, and feeling good about being a part of it, I felt myself doubling down on it. Like, if Honor is all in, and she is she has her eyes on everything, and she feels good about it, I can feel much better about it. And so there were synchronicities like that, and the attorney that we had that originally got us set up was so amazing, and talking with him really helped me feel like this is important, and we are the people. Not only it's obviously important, but important work, but we do feel like the people to be doing this based on everything we've been through, what we've learned, working with the mushrooms, working with other people, logistically organizing an international retreat center. We've already done a lot of work in this realm. So maybe this is it. So, and I really wanted community. I really wanted intentional community that I could, and our family could, talk about the mushroom and have the mushroom be a coming home conversation for that community. And I wasn't seeing it in Louisville or many places at all.
So I know we're going to run short on time here, but I got two questions that I want to ask you as we start moving towards the wrap up here. There's so much that we could unpack, but I was going to jump to it. What are you seeing as we go through this very different process of educating, training, ordaining ministers to hold space for community, to help facilitate in the creation of community? What are you seeing that is so different from what you saw in these kind of hop in, hop out experiences in the retreat world?
So much. We have, and we continue to put in a lot of thought, and really it's a central part of our decision making and conversation when we're developing any program within our community or any offering. We ask the question, is this contributing to the health and longevity of lasting community? Is this helping our community stay together and stay in connection with each other, improve the connection with each other over time? And yes, in the for-profit retreat model, of course, the question is also being asked, are we getting return customers? is what we're doing improving our retention of customers over time? Like, yes, there's that question, but it's the intention behind it is different. The retreat model question is more of a bottom line revenue driven question, and the question we're asking is more oriented towards the whole of an individual and a community. So it's not just about like the return of people. It's about the connection that runs through the people. So the dollars are meant to support that connection that do flow through our organization. It's not the other way around. Whereas the retreat model is generally how can the people support the dollars? So it's just a different, very different intention.
There's also the ever expanding profit margin of a corporate model versus the capped salaries in a nonprofit model like ours, which I think is just as you bring that up and you say the importance of the question, like that is the driving force behind the intention of the community. And if you have a model that is seeking to maximize profits so that you can improve offerings, but also, like, let's be honest here, improve income for the, CEOs and the which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not opposed to capitalism per se. I have serious issues with psychedelics and psilocybin in particular being profit driven when these are God-given gifts of nature that I feel seem to be better applied in a setting where less money is involved than more, and where there's more peer support than this kind of idealized professional support. But that's, a bigger conversation that we can
Yeah,
save
so
for down
that, what you just said is if there's anything that's different with what we're doing from what the majority of any psychedelic ceremony or space holding or retreat model is that our priority has moved into peer support and empowering our community to be empowered in their own circles and in their own regions and locales, and really focusing and asking ourselves is how can we build programs and infrastructure that is enabling our members in our community to help each other and to be of service to each other and with each other. And it's a big job. It's so outside of the box of how the majority of any organization operates, which is usually from the top down, and we're more of like a mycelial model where everything is interconnected. And it's a big dynamic thing to be figuring out as a community. So it's really cool to see it unfolding though. I'm excited to hear from on this podcast. You'll be interviewing friends and family ministers and I've already interviewed some who are holding space in their communities. Terry, Matthew, people that are feeling really more empowered to be there for people they care about and be like, here's this gift of the mushroom, and I love you and I care about you, and I want you to have a better life. I want you to get through this, and I got you. I've got some skills under my belt. I've got people I can talk with to help us through this. Like, let's do this. I now feel able to hold space for you with the mushroom, and I've got a whole community that can help me figure out whatever I need to figure out. Like, that is what we're going for. It's a beautiful, really exciting future that we have ahead of us.
You speaking this out loud is providing me with, kind of a perspective that I don't normally take, being in the midst of it. And it's like, wow, if I was to come upon this, I would just be like, what? You're doing what?
Yeah.
So how do you see this potentially impacting religious culture in the U.S.? What role do you see Psanctuary playing in the evolution of religion here?
I see Psanctuary helping communities across the world, really, initially the United States, get back to the homegrown church model, the let's have church in my house model, or in the neighborhood house of choice, or whatever, who's hosting model. And like getting back to that, but in a new, like refreshed, like joyous way, a return of community, faith, and inspiration and celebration in communities, in locales, in their own special, unique way. Like really a return of uplifting and like rejoicing life. And instead of like, and just really moving away from where a lot of people are moving away from right now, which is, oh, I do this because I should, or I have to, so I don't go to hell, or
shame and guilt.
Why am I doing this again? Because I'm pretty sure I don't want to, but for some reason me and everybody around me thinks we should, and now we're all like here wondering why we're here. So moving away from that. And
thank you.
Like an opt-in culture again of like, let's get together and in our own circles and units, remember who we are with each other and lift each other up. So that's what excites me most. That's what the mushroom has helped me do. And it's so much better with others. Like, we are all these beautiful mirrors for each other, and it's pretty cool just to be together. And
it's also a little
alive.
more difficult at times with others as well, because we are mirrors for each other. But
for sure,
that is where the endurance, the discipline, sticking it through the tough times, just like our relationship with the mushroom, sticking through the tough times in relationship with each other. That's how we last. That's longevity. That's healing. That's community. All right, 2 more questions. These are quicker. These are a little more fun. If you, since you are a ordained friends and family minister, who are, I don't know, up to 3 people from all time in history that you would like to hold space for? Yeah.
3 people?
3 people. Up to 3 people. It could just be 1. But as our friends and family ministry is kind of, we suggest no more than 3 people in a ceremony with 2 space holders. Who would you?
Well, that seems like a pretty easy question. My son, our daughter, when they're old enough, not right now.
Right.
And My mom. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to elaborate, or is that it?
You're welcome to, if you like.
I know we're short on time. Well,
I'm actually long on time, but
whatever. However you want to put that. Yeah, it's like it feels for sure our son and daughter. That sounds like the richness of that to me, being able to really like be with them and remember what we're all doing here together. I can't imagine much more epic of an experience than that. With my mom, because again, what are we doing here together? I'd like to have that experience if possible with my mom. And I know that she's interested in that type of experience. Yeah. And yeah, my dad, I don't know. I would love to have that experience with him too if he wanted to have it. But that's it right there. That's like my big vision. That's like my ultimate vision with Psanctuary, is that more families feel excited and like I don't even know if I have the words, but like it just feels right to have that kind of transcending this lifetime experience with each other with the mushroom. Right now we're still doing so much work and just educating folks that in generations, my parents' generation, and our generation, that mushrooms are not poisonous. Like psilocybin is not going to kill you. It's not going to fry your brain. Like it's the opposite of that. Like there's still a lot of work to do there. So I'm excited for when that's not the work that's being done. And we can really just focus on how do we empower each other in our communities and in our families, and like get to the healthy communication parts of the work. So
I know that's your jam.
yes, it is.
The authentic relating specialist of Psanctuary. Last question. If there, you certainly there's someone out here listening to this who's never taken mushrooms, who's never had the experience. You have one opportunity to give them just your best, like, one-liner. What's the one thing? Because we all know that you could talk for a very long time about the things to do, the things to not do, the way. But if there's one most crucial piece of information that you would give a newbie to this experience, what would that be?
Well, the first thing that comes to me is 2 words. Love it. That's been the biggest message in my mushroom communions over the last couple of years, is just love it. When it sucks, love it. When it's beautiful, love it. When you don't understand it, love it. When you're confused, love it. Like, thank you. It's great. I love you. I love it. And if you have that, I don't really know what else you need from this point in my life. That's helping me a lot.
Sounds like a life lesson there, not just a trip tip.
Maybe so.
I love it. I love
Me
you.
too.
Thank you so much for being the first guest on this 2.0.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us. If you have enjoyed this, please put something in the comments. If you went back and listened to that 4-hour episode of Courtney and I on Psilocybin Says, I would so love to hear from you in the comments what you thought about that one.
And also let us know what you think about Eric and I both doing this so much throughout the episode.
Were you doing this? I didn't notice that.
Yes. I kept catching us both just like,
Have we been watching the
this
same?
This is a secret cult symbol.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
If
Yeah.
you,
That's right.
Oh, shit, I said it.
Let me do some
I wasn't supposed to.
Let me do some finger signs.
This feels really. It's like helpful for some reason.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a
talking.
concentration mantra, or not mantra. What's it called? Mudra, I believe. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Namaste.
Peace out. Thanks, everybody. See you on the next one.